1783, Europe holds its breath. An army bigger than anything the continent has seen in a generation sits outside the walls of one city. Over 100,000 Ottoman soldiers with cannons and siege towers and the best engineers in the known world. Inside Vienna, 15,000 defenders and 8,700 volunteers. The math is brutal. The Grand Vizier sends his surrender demand on the 14th of July. Count Ernst Rudiger von Starhemberg reads it and spits back one line: "Let him come." But by September, the walls have holes you can drive wagons through. Food runs out, disease spreads, bodies pile in streets. The garrison drops to 5,000 men fit for combat. And then a relief army appears on the hills. 70,000 troops from Poland and the Holy Roman Empire under King John III, Sobieski. What happens next is the largest cavalry charge in recorded history. 18,000 horsemen pouring down a mountainside in 4 waves. 3 hours of chaos. And by nightfall on September 12th, 1683, the Ottoman Empire's 300-year push into Europe is over. Also, this script is researched and factual, using sources from contemporary Ottoman historian Silidar Findiklili Mehmed Agha's battle accounts, published in 1683 in the detailed military records found in Kara Mustafa's captured tent that now sit in Vienna's war archives. These aren't secondhand stories. These are battlefield documents with troop counts and casualty lists and exact times. Now back to the information. The Ottoman Empire in 1683 controls territory from Baghdad to Budapest. For 3 centuries, they've pushed west. Constantinople fell in 1453. Hungary collapsed at Mohacs in 1526, where 20,000 Hungarian knights died in 2 hours. By 1682, the Ottomans control most of Hungary and Transylvania. Grand Vizier Kara Mustafa Pasha convinces Sultan Mehmed IV to give him an army. Not for border fortresses, for Vienna, the capital, the gateway to Germany and the heart of Catholic Europe. Sultan approves the campaign on January 21st, 1682. War declared August 6th. But the real mobilization takes 15 months. Kara Mustafa spends that time collecting troops from every corner of the empire. Janissaries from Istanbul, cavalry from the Crimean Khanate, artillery from Egypt, engineers from Damascus. By spring 1683, the army gathers at Adrianople, then Belgrade. Documents found in the Grand Vizier's tent after the battle list initial campaign strength at 170,000 men, 60 hordas of Janissaries on paper numbering 1,000 each. Reality is different. Maybe 90,000 to 150,000 actually march. But it's still the largest Ottoman force fielded in the 17th century. They reach Belgrade by early May. The army moves northwest through Hungary. 40,000 Crimean Tatars arrive 40 kilometers east of Vienna on July 7th. They're shock troops, light cavalry designed to scout and raid and terrorize. Emperor Leopold I sees them coming and flees Vienna with 80,000 civilians on July 7th. He runs to Linz, leaves the defense to Count Ernst Rudiger von Starhemberg, who has 15,000 regular soldiers plus 8,700 volunteers, mostly townsmen and students and craftsmen who've never held a pike. The main Ottoman army reaches Vienna's walls on July 14, 1683. Kara Mustafa sends his surrender demand. Starhemberg refuses. The siege begins. Miles of trenches snake toward the walls. Sappers tunnel underneath to plant explosives. Turkish engineers are masters of this. They've taken cities from Constantinople to roads with siege mines. Defenders hear the digging below their feet. They countermine. Underground battles in the dark with knives and hand axes. 18 major assaults hit Vienna's walls between July 14th and September 12th. That's 60 days. Every assault cost the Ottomans hundreds of men. Costs the defenders dozens they can't replace. By August, the garrison clears the ground outside the walls to create a kill zone. Any Ottoman who crosses that open space walks into musket fire and canister shot. But the mining continues. Ottoman engineers blow holes in the walls. Sections collapse. Defenders plug the gaps with rubble and bodies in desperation. Inside the city, conditions deteriorate fast. Supply lines are cut. By late August, food is rationed, then scarce, then gone. People eat horses, then rats. Disease spreads through cramped quarters. Dysentery, typhus, plague maybe. The dead outnumber the living in some districts. Starhemberg issues orders. Any soldier caught sleeping on watch gets executed. It's that desperate. He knows the math, knows they can't hold much longer. The only hope is outside those walls. Wants to be the man who takes Vienna after Suleiman the Magnificent failed in 1529. Wants the wealth inside those walls because Vienna is rich. Decades of trade have filled its warehouses and churches and noble houses with gold and silver and tapestries and art. Ottoman soldiers see that wealth from their trenches. They dig faster. Emperor Leopold I activates the Treaty of Warsaw, signed in 1683. It's an alliance with Poland. Leopold promises to help Poland if the Ottomans attack Krakow. In return, King John III Sobieski of Poland will relieve Vienna if it's besieged. Pope Innocent XI throws money and political pressure behind the coalition. He wants every Catholic prince in the Holy Roman Empire to send troops. Bavaria responds. Saxony sends soldiers. Franconia commits. By late August, the relief force assembles northwest of Vienna. Sobieski departs Krakow on August 15th with 23,000 Polish troops, including 3,000 elite winged hussars. He crosses into imperial territory and joins 18,500 Austrians under Charles V, Duke of Lorraine. 19,000 Franconians, Swabians, and Bavarians arrive under Prince Georg Friedrich of Waldeck. 9,000 Saxons come with John George III, Elector of Saxony. Total strength around 70,000 men. Steep hills covered in trees. Artillery has to be dragged uphill. Horses slip on loose ground. Supply wagons fall behind, but they push forward because Vienna is out of time. On September 6th, the relief army reaches the high ground at Kahlenberg Mountain overlooking Vienna. They can see the Ottoman siege works below, can see smoke rising from the constant bombardment, can see the Turkish camp spreading for miles around the city. Tents and supply depots and artillery parks and 30,000 camp followers. The Ottomans have been here 2 months. They're dug in, confident, maybe too confident. Keeps them there, hammering the walls, trying for one last breakthrough before the Christians arrive. Instead of turning his army around to face the threat on Kahlenberg, he splits his focus. Keeps pressure on Vienna while sending cavalry to harass the relief force. It's a gamble. He thinks he can take the city before Sobieski attacks. He's wrong. Austrians take the left wing between Leopoldsburg and Hermannskogel. Charles of Lorraine and John George III of Saxony position imperial and Saxon troops there. Waldeck and Max Emanuel position Franconians and Bavarians on their right. Poles struggle to cross the Weidlingsbach stream and form up on the right wing between Roscoff and Dreimarkstein. That night, there's a war council. Sobieski examines the terrain and gets angry. The maps he received from imperial commanders are garbage. The ground is rougher and steeper than shown. Ravines and woods and vineyards everywhere. He wants to delay the attack, give his cavalry more time to position. But the other commanders push back. Vienna is dying. If they wait another day, the city might fall. They compromise. Attack goes forward. September 12th, but German regiments will screen the Polish cavalry as they descend the mountain. Sobieski agrees. Charles of Lorraine's forces hit Ottoman positions on the left. They capture Nussdorf and Heiligenstadt. Turkish defenders fight hard, but they're surprised. They expected an attack, but not this early, not this coordinated. The Imperials push forward. Saxons and Bavarians engage in the center. Fighting spreads across the plain below Kahlenberg. It's brutal close combat. Pike against scimitar, musket against bow. The Ottomans rally. Bring up reinforcements from the siege lines. The battle becomes a grinding slugfest. Sobieski sees Ottoman vulnerability, also sees his men are tired from the march, but eager, sees the Austrians and Germans are pushing hard on the left and center, sees the Ottomans are stretched thin trying to defend multiple fronts and still attack Vienna. He makes his decision. The cavalry will charge now, not tomorrow, now. Cavalry charge in recorded history. 4 contingents, 3 Polish, 1 from the Holy Roman Empire. 18,000 horsemen total. They form up on the slopes of Kahlenberg. Sobieski leads from the front with 3,000 Polish heavy lancers, the winged hussars. Elite cavalry wearing steel armor from head to thigh. Some wear wings attached to their backs, eagle feathers and wood frames that whistle as they gallop. Others wear tiger and leopard pelts. They carry 19-foot lances with pennons at the tip, 4 pistols, 2 sabers, 1 curved, 1 straight, war hammers. Behind them come 15,000 more cavalry. Panzerni in mail shirts with shields and short lances. Lighter cavalry with minimal armor and sabers. German and Austrian cuirassiers and dragoons, all packed knee to knee in tight formations. Horses pick up speed slowly because of the terrain. Vineyards slow them. Fences have to be jumped. The ground is uneven from weeks of rain. But as they reach open ground at Baumgarten Ottakring Weinhaus, the formation tightens and the pace quickens to full gallop. The sound must be insane. 18,000 hooves on hard ground, thunder rolling down the mountain. The Ottomans see them coming. Turkish artillery opens fire. Cannonballs rip through Polish ranks. Men and horses go down. But the charge doesn't stop, doesn't slow. The cavalry crashes into Ottoman lines like a breaking wave. Lances shatter with sounds that echo across the battlefield. Contemporary accounts describe it like thunder. The Ottomans try to hold, but they can't. The weight and speed and shock of 18,000 horsemen in tight formation is overwhelming. Turkish infantry breaks. Cavalry scatters. The left wing of the Ottoman army collapses. Mustafa's headquarters at the Turkenschanz fortification. The Grand Vizier sees his army disintegrating. He personally leads a counterattack. Sipahi and Siladar, cavalry units charge into German infantry. They hit hard, break through in places, but German artillery and musket fire is too heavy. The counterattack stalls. Ottoman units begin to flee. Leaves everything. The tent is massive, red silk with gold trim. Inside are documents detailing the entire campaign. Troop rosters, supply manifests, battle orders, maps. The Holy League forces capture it intact. They also capture the Grand Vizier's personal treasury, chests of gold and silver coins, jewels, exotic fabrics, weapons inlaid with precious metals. Sobieski later writes to his wife about treasures unheard of, describes tents and sheep and cattle and hundreds of camels left behind. Cut them down on the roads, at river crossings and camps. The killing is systematic. Before fleeing, the Ottomans massacred hundreds of captives they'd been holding. Christian prisoners from raids in Hungary and Austria. Women and children. Bodies are found in the Turkish camp. When Count Starhemberg learns about this, he orders retaliation. 3,000 sick and wounded Ottoman soldiers are found abandoned in the camp. Starhemberg's troops burn them alive. It's documented by multiple sources. Not disputed. War in 1683 has no mercy. Battle casualties on September 12th had another 8,000 to 15,000 dead, depending on which source you trust. Another 5,000 to 10,000 are captured. Total Ottoman losses during siege and battle are somewhere between 33,000 and 45,000 men, more than a quarter of the army. The relief force under Sobieski loses about 3,500 dead and wounded, including 1,300. Poles. Some sources say 4,500. Either way, it's a fraction of Ottoman casualties. The 10,000-strong Viennese garrison and civilian population lose about half their number during the siege, 5,000 dead from combat disease and starvation. Within 16 years, the Habsburgs conquer southern Hungary and Transylvania, push the Ottomans back hundreds of kilometers. The Treaty of Karlowitz in 1699 formalizes these losses. The Ottoman Empire cedes most of Ottoman Hungary to Leopold I. It's the beginning of a long, slow decline that continues until the empire's dissolution after World War I. He flees the battlefield with what remains of his army, tries to regroup in Hungary, executes subordinate commanders to deflect blame, claims they lost the battle, not him. Sultan Mehmed IV doesn't buy it. The Sultan's advisors have been feeding him reports during Kara Mustafa's absence. Reports of disorder in the army, reports of the Grand Vizier enriching himself from conquered territories, reports of favoritism toward Janissary elites. Political enemies at court see an opportunity. They move fast. On December 25th, 1683, Kara Mustafa is executed in Belgrade. The method is strangulation with a silk cord, traditional punishment for high-ranking Ottoman officials. Multiple men pull each end of the cord. Contemporary accounts record his last words, "Am I to die?" Then, after a pause, "As God pleases." After strangulation, his head is severed and sent to Sultan Mehmed IV in a velvet bag. The body is buried in Belgrade. The head eventually makes it to Edirne, where it's interred in the graveyard of Sarika Pasha Mosque. A skull displayed in Vienna's City Museum for decades was believed to be Kara Mustafa's, acquired by Habsburg grave robbers when they briefly retook Belgrade in 1688. That skull was finally buried in Vienna's Central Cemetery in 2006. Whether it's actually his remains disputed. Blamed for the military disasters that follow Vienna, the Ottoman government enters a period of instability and internal power struggles that weakens the empire for generations. Art commemorating the battle appears everywhere. Paintings, sculptures, tapestries. The most famous is John Mateko's massive canvas painted for the 200th anniversary in 1883. It's 9 meters by 4.5 meters. Shows Sobieski on horseback handing a victory letter to the papal emissary. Polish standards with the white eagle on red flags, the Turkish camp in chaos. It hangs in the Vatican museums in the John Sobieski Room. Tactical lessons about defensive fortifications and siege warfare, the effectiveness of coordinated attacks on multiple fronts. European military academies teach Vienna as a case study in how to relieve a besieged city. One legend claims the croissant was invented in Vienna to celebrate the victory, the crescent shape mocking the Ottoman flag. The story connects to viennoiserie pastries. Another legend says the bagel was created as a gift for King Sobieski, shaped like a stirrup to commemorate the cavalry charge. Whether these stories are true is uncertain. References to similar breads exist before 1683. But the legends persist because they tie everyday food to an epic moment. Marches on Rome. That was the plan. Take Vienna, move west, reduce Catholic Europe's holiest sites to rubble. It doesn't happen. The cavalry charge on September 12th stops it. Changes European history. Without Vienna, maybe the Ottomans conquer more of Central Europe. Maybe the Habsburg monarchy collapses. Maybe Protestant and Catholic states can't unite against a common threat. Maybe the balance of power shifts permanently eastward. But Vienna holds, the siege is lifted, the Ottomans retreat, and the battlefield transforms into a treasure trove. Holy League troops and Viennese citizens spend a week collecting loot from the Turkish camp. Sobieski gets first rights per his agreement with Leopold. The king takes the Grand Vizier's tent as his prize, later donates it to the Pope, also takes Kara Mustafa's stirrup. Gives it to his wife Maria Kazimiera, who places it in front of the altar at Wawel Cathedral in Krakow. Stirrups are considered major battle trophies in 17th century warfare, symbol of a cavalry victory. The remaining loot is divided among the troops. Soldiers find weapons and armor and coins and fabrics and livestock. The Ottoman camp was a city unto itself. 2 months of siege means 2 months of supplies, all left behind in the panic. The Viennese welcome Sobieski like a hero, streets packed with people cheering, church bells ringing. But Emperor Leopold I receives him coldly. There's tension. Leopold fled Vienna when the Ottomans arrived. Sobieski stayed and fought. The contrast is obvious. Also, Leopold resents giving the Polish king first rights to plunder, resents that Sobieski's cavalry delivered the decisive blow. Political jealousy between allies. It complicates post-battle cooperation. The coalition that saved Vienna splinters over credit and spoils. It's a statement of divine providence, attributing victory not to military skill but to heavenly intervention. It fits the narrative of Christian Europe saved by miraculous deliverance. The letter becomes part of the battle's mythology. Started in the 16th century when King Stefan Batory reorganized Polish cavalry, took inspiration from Hungarian hussars but made them heavier, added armor but kept speed and maneuverability. By the Livonian War from 1557 to 1570, there were twice as many hussars as traditional knights. They used tactics of mass shock charges at full gallop in tight knee-to-knee formations. The wings some wore weren't decorative. Multiple theories exist. Maybe they protected against lasso attacks. Maybe they created psychological effect. Maybe the whistling sound unnerved enemy horses. Probably all three. Physical evidence exists. Surviving hussar armor in Polish museums shows wing attachments. Contemporary paintings depict them. They were real. 3,000 winged hussars leading 18,000 cavalry in history's largest mounted charge. After Vienna, the hussars continue serving until the 1770s. Then changing battlefield tactics make heavy cavalry obsolete. Firearms improve. Infantry formations evolve. Large organized cavalry charges become suicide against disciplined musket fire and artillery. The hussars fade. Their duties pass to lighter cavalry units called uhlans. But at Vienna in 1683, they prove unstoppable. Force the Treaty of Karlowitz. The Ottomans lose Hungary, Transylvania, and territories in the Balkans. Each loss weakens imperial authority. Each defeat spawns internal conflicts over who's responsible. The government cycles through leaders. Reforms are attempted. Some succeed temporarily, most fail. The decline is gradual but relentless. Sobieski's victory restores Polish prestige briefly, but the Commonwealth faces its own internal problems. Weak central authority, powerful nobles resisting reform, hostile neighbors in Russia, Prussia, and Austria. Within a century, Poland is partitioned, erased from the map, divided between its neighbors. The cavalry that saved Vienna can't save Poland itself. The victory gives them momentum. They expand territory, consolidate power, become the dominant force between the German states and the Ottoman border. That hegemony lasts until World War I, when the Austro-Hungarian Empire collapses alongside the Ottoman Empire. Both empires that fought at Vienna in 1683 end in the same war 235 years later. Kallenberg Mountain is a popular hiking destination. Tourists visit to see the view Sobieski saw. The terrain is still steep, still covered in woods. Hard to imagine cavalry descending that slope at full gallop, but they did. A church now stands where Marco d'Aviano celebrated Mass on September 12th. It's a pilgrimage site. Plaques commemorate the battle. Polish and Austrian flags fly together. The Turkenschanz fortification site is marked. Vienna's City Museum holds artifacts from the battle. Turkish weapons, armor, banners. The tent Sobieski captured is in the Vatican. Some of Kara Mustafa's personal items are in Turkish museums. The physical evidence survives. Ottoman sources like Siladar Findiklili, Mehmed Agha's chronicle confirm casualty figures and battle sequence. The documents found in Kara Mustafa's tent provide Ottoman perspective on strategy and logistics. Archaeological work at siege sites around Vienna uncovers evidence of mining operations and artillery positions. Bone pits confirm casualty numbers. The historical record is robust. This isn't legend, it's documented fact. The charge itself lasted about 30 minutes according to multiple sources. 30 minutes to break Ottoman lines and decide the battle. Then 3 more hours of pursuit and mopping up before organized Ottoman resistance ends. By 10 in the evening, September 12th, the fighting is over. Sobieski orders German forces around the Turkenschanz and Polish units along the Vienna River to maintain guard through the night in case of counterattack. It never comes. The Ottomans are done. They flee south. By dawn on September 13th, Vienna is fully relieved. The siege is broken. The city is saved. Hundreds of Austrian and Hungarian captives massacred by retreating Ottomans. 3,000 Ottoman wounded burned alive in retaliation. The breakdown of discipline on both sides produces atrocities. War in the 17th century offers no protections for non-combatants, no Geneva Conventions, no rules of engagement beyond what individual commanders enforce. The result is brutal. Moving 100,000 plus men from Adrianople to Vienna is a massive undertaking. Supply chains stretch hundreds of kilometers. Food, water, ammunition, artillery, siege equipment, camp followers, animals, all have to be transported and managed. Kara Mustafa's failure isn't just tactical, it's logistical. He underestimates how long Vienna can hold, assumes a quick surrender. When the city refuses, he's committed to a siege he isn't fully prepared for. 2 months exhaust supplies, strain logistics, lower morale. By September, the army is tired, stretched thin, vulnerable. That's when Sobieski attacks. Different languages, different command structures, different military traditions, yet they create an effective coalition in 6 days. That's remarkable. Shows strong leadership from Sobieski and flexibility from other commanders. Without that cooperation, the attack fails. He's right. But if the Ottomans hold, the Polish cavalry is exposed, stuck on rough terrain with limited ability to maneuver or retreat. A disciplined Ottoman counterattack could encircle and destroy them. Kara Mustafa's failure to position his Janissary units properly prevents that. His best infantry are still in the siege trenches when they should be defending against the cavalry. It's the fatal mistake. The aftermath shapes European politics for decades. The Holy League formed to relieve Vienna continues operations against the Ottomans. Campaigns in 1684 through 1699 pushed the border south and east. Multiple battles. Buda falls in 1686 after a 6-week siege. The Holy League army includes German, Croatian, Dutch, Hungarian, English, and Spanish troops. Over 74,000 men. It's an international coalition, united by opposition to Ottoman expansion. Prince Eugene of Savoy emerges as a military hero, defeats the Ottomans at Zenta in 1697 with brutal efficiency, forces peace negotiations. The Treaty of Karlowitz formalizes Ottoman territorial losses. Europe celebrates Prince Eugene as the savior of Christendom. English volunteers fight in his army. Protestants and Catholics unite against a common enemy. The religious divisions that tore Europe apart in the 30 Years' War take a back seat to the Ottoman threat. Cavalry charge, last-minute rescue. Villainous Grand Vizier executed for failure. It's perfect narrative material. Gets embellished over time, but the core facts remain. September 12th, 1683. Vienna besieged. Relief army arrives. Largest cavalry charge in history. Ottoman army routed, Europe saved. Some historians note the Habsburgs were simultaneously fighting internal separatist movements and competing with Prussia and France for Central European control. The Ottoman threat was real, but Vienna's importance gets inflated in retrospect. Other scholars point out the Ottomans maintained military parity with the Habsburgs until the mid-18th century. One battle doesn't end an empire. The decline takes generations. Still others examine the non-combat factors. How the Habsburgs built military border communities that produced steady flows of trained, motivated soldiers. How logistics and fortification strategies evolved. How combined arms doctrine developed. The Battle of Vienna fits into larger patterns of early modern warfare, teaches lessons about command coordination and tactical flexibility, and the importance of intelligence about enemy positions. But none of that changes what happened on Kahlenberg Mountain. 18,000 horsemen charged down those slopes, broke Ottoman lines, lifted the siege, ended 3 centuries of westward expansion. That's not propaganda. That's documented historical fact, verified by sources from both sides. The numbers hold up under scrutiny. The timeline matches across accounts. The physical evidence exists. Vienna was besieged. Vienna was saved. The Ottoman Empire never threatened Western Europe again. Imagine doing it at full gallop in tight formation with thousands of other riders. The physical courage required is immense. These weren't reckless berserkers. They were professional soldiers executing a coordinated tactical maneuver under combat conditions. The training and discipline that takes is extraordinary. Learn to fight in tight ranks at speed. Horses were bred specifically for size and strength, could carry armored riders at full gallop. The Hussar banners were elite units. 24 banners accompanied Sobieski to Vienna, each banner roughly 100 to 150 men. When 3,000 lancers charge, the wall of lance points is overwhelming. Ottoman infantry see it coming and many break before contact. The lance shatters on impact, but the hussar has drawn saber or pistol. Training means they fight effectively in chaos. That's what breaks the Ottoman left wing. But their peak glory is September 12th, 1683. By 1780, the last units disband. But for 2 centuries, they were Europe's premier heavy cavalry. Documents proved corruption charges used to justify his execution. Politics and military failures sealed his fate. The silk cord used was traditional. High-ranking Ottomans weren't beheaded like common criminals. Strangulation with silk was honorable execution. Multiple men pulled the ends. Kara Mustafa's last words suggest resignation. Am I to die? Then acceptance. As God pleases, the head sent to the Sultan confirmed execution. DNA testing could resolve it if descendants exist and consent. Yilmaz Mirzafonlu claimed descent from Kara Mustafa, died in 2010. Without genetic samples, comparison is impossible. Vienna's walls show damage from bombardment. Archaeological record supports written sources. After the battle, Pope Innocent XI pushes for continued campaigns. He sees momentum, wants to exploit Ottoman weakness, organizes the Holy League. The Pope's role is crucial. The campaigns from 1684 through 1699 succeed because of sustained coalition effort. Regular forces try to maintain order, but morale is shattered. Disease and exposure kill more during withdrawal. By the time remnants reach Belgrade, half the army is gone. Execution by silk cord. December 25th. Kara Mustafa dies. His foundation continues for centuries. Secure supply lines. Academies use Vienna as case study. For Poland, the victory represents a last moment of glory. Sobieski's reputation can't save the Commonwealth from internal dysfunction. Within a century, Poland is partitioned. But in 1683, Polish cavalry is the best in Europe. That moment is real. For the Ottomans, defeat is a turning point, but not immediate collapse. The empire remains powerful, but momentum is gone. Vienna is where 300 years of expansion end. Radiocarbon dating placed them in the late 17th century. Location corresponded to documented sites of heavy fighting during the September 12th battle. The bones tell the same story as written sources. Men died here, violently, in large numbers. The physical evidence closes the loop. Vienna happened. The charge happened. The casualties are real, no legend, pure history.